Look, this election was a shock. You were both on the show last week. None of us predicted this massive majority for Albanese. Cameron, starting with you, you've written a brilliant column tonight. I just referred to it earlier in the show. What's your main takeaway from this result?
Well, I think as the week went on, everyone realised that Albanese was going to become Prime Minister. It was either going to be majority or minority. And I think what's happened is that Middle Australia decided they didn't want the Greens, the revolting Greens, to have the balance of power, so they plumbed for Labor. And the reason why I say that is that Labor only won seats in Middle Australia. They were the outer eastern suburbs, the Perth metro suburbs, some of the ones in Sydney. In fact, Labor had massive swings against it in its own heartland. Labor's standing to lose 5 of its safest seats at this election. So Middle Australia, who hate the Greens, don't stand for their politics, didn't want them in balance of power, voted for Labor, holding their nose probably while they did it. But in the end, that was enough to get Albo the number of seats. But I think that was the big shift at the end, because at the end, people realised that Dutton wasn't going to get there. Albo was, so might as well have a majority. So at least we can have the Greens in the power in the centre of power.
I mean, we can sit here tonight and say Labor's primary was, still among historic lows, 34%, even though the coalition's is truly diabolical, which I'll get to that in a minute. But the reality is, with 86 or 87 seats, it doesn't matter what their primary is, Andrew. Albanese is going to take this as a mandate to basically do whatever he wants.
Well, he certainly will, Sharri, and he'll ignore the pain that has been caused in the last 3 years because he can't see that anymore. It's been kind of washed away by this result. So expect the hubris to come. But on the flip side, I think this result, you've got to get back to the core reasons why we saw the result that we did on Saturday night. And I think Australians were deeply angry and frustrated with the Albanese government, but that anger and frustration wasn't enough to overcome the fact that they had a major hesitation with Peter Dutton. I mean, you can't paper over that fact that the coalition had a deeply unpopular leader into an election. And, yes, the campaign was terrible. Yes, the ads were bad and they were late. Yes, there was a one-man wrecking ball named Donald Trump that interrupted the campaign. You can lay all those excuses out, but you can't paper over the fact that Peter Dutton was unpopular as a leader. And I think that really weighed on that vote. And Australians were very happy to be convinced, given the pain that they'd gone through. But by the end of that last week, they just weren't convinced. And
it's interesting because, we've been analysing the campaign, but ultimately Labor had framed Peter Dutton for most of his career. They'd called him, I don't even want to say it on air, but they'd called him Potato Head, they'd called him Voldemort, they had framed him as a racist in the nastiest possible way. And this is long before he even became opposition leader. So, Cameron, perhaps it was almost impossible to change voter perceptions of him when he already had that image in Australians' minds.
Except he won the Voice campaign. So he did have a win in the midst of this situation. 4 months before polling day, he was in the box seat. He'd actually done the job at the demolition on Albanese's record in government on cost of living. He'd done the job. What he didn't do, and his policy team to do, and I think Angus Taylor is the biggest person to blame for this, they didn't do the policy work. They didn't have an answer to the problem. So they asked the question, which is, are you better off than 3 years ago? And didn't have an answer for the next 3 years. So they failed the basic politics 101 on the policy front.
Andrew, you were working for Scott Morrison ahead of the last election 3 years ago, which was a devastating loss in itself. And, the coalition was reduced to some 57, 58 seats at the time. And that was considered a crushing defeat. And Scott Morrison was blamed for that, for being unpopular. But now when you think the Liberals sitting on around 39 seats, this has got to now be, look, other people have said to me today, you could win. The way election cycles move at the moment, things can change so quickly. It's not out of the question they could win in 3 years' time. But you'd have to say that's extremely unlikely. Almost it is out of the question.
Yeah, it's extremely unlikely. In 6 years will likely be it, maybe even 9, who knows. We saw that certainly after Rudd, Gillard, Rudd. But really, and someone said this the other day, the Liberal Party has a lot of soul searching to do, but they've got to find their soul first. And you could make the argument that the Liberal Party has walked away from its core values. It's not Australians that have walked away from conservative economic values. It's not Australian households that have walked away from classical liberalism in the John Howard kind of mindset. It's the Liberal Party. They got up and walked away from it. They chose to prioritise other things and not the cost of living, not building a stronger economy. I can't believe I didn't hear the phrase stronger economy or stronger economic growth through the entire campaign. I heard little bits on cost of living, but it's a misaligned priority. And Australians just looked at it and turned the volume down.
And it's interesting because, Cameron, by the same token, the Federal Labor Party isn't what a lot of traditional Labor supporters say that it used to be. It's not a centrist party. It's not a reforming party.
No, it's a blancmange. I mean, this bloke is middle management. He's actually not governing. I mean, he's managing day-to-day issues, press conference here, press conference there. This bloke is not a Labor Prime Minister. I mean, he might call himself Labor, but it's in name only, Sharri. I mean, Hawke, Keating, Chifley, Whitlam, they were Labor reformers. This bloke is a performer, not a reformer.
Great line, Cameron. All right, so where to from here? Andrew Carswell, who do you think would be the best leader of the Liberal Party now? Does it even matter? Is it not even worth talking about?
Well, whoever steps in is basically a placeholder for 6 years. They won't be the next Liberal Prime Minister. I guarantee you it's a long way to go, 6 years in opposition. Really, the job now is to steady the ship and as I said before, find the soul of the Liberal Party. And get things back on track and plug in with the voters that have just abandoned them. The voters in their traditional suburbs that turn their backs on the Liberal Party this campaign. So I think it is either the three, it is Angus, Susan, or you might have a Scott Morrison that comes up the middle in Dan Tehan. Who knows? But I think 1, 2, 3, the combination, I think would be in safe hands in terms of steadying the ship and getting it ready. And then you have to think about next generation. It needs to be the next generation of leaders that take the Liberal Party into the next election and beyond. Yeah,
and of course, Andrew Hasty has confirmed that he's not running for the Liberal leadership. He says he's got 3 young children. It's not the right time for him as well. And this will be a bit of a marathon. Just to end, Cameron, all of the polling companies got this wrong, except for YouGov was closest at the very end, but otherwise all of them got this wrong.
Yeah. Oh, look, they do, and polling's not an exact science, and I mean, I don't blame the pollsters, but I think the trend was right. I mean, they picked that Albanese was leading this campaign, he was going to become Prime Minister, and as I said in the article today, I think Middle Australia just decided to vote for certainty, reject Trump, and give Labor a working majority rather than letting the extreme Greens have the whip hand.
All right. Cameron Milner, Andrew Carswell, great to see you. Catch up next Monday.